this financial year. There's lots of stuff going on in the world of politics at the moment. Cameron and Clegg have spent their first full week as PM and Deputy PM in the first coalition government since the Second World War. This is what David Cameron's been saying about the partnership.
I am a Conservative Prime Minister leading a coalition. Nick is a Liberal Democrat Deputy Prime Minister helping to drive this coalition forward. We will always be clear about that. From its inception, this coalition has been about cooperation and engagement. It's been animated by a spirit of openness. It's been driven forward by shared values and a shared purpose. This coalition, I believe, has the potential to be a great reforming government, united behind the three principles of freedom, of fairness and responsibility, but above all, united in the purpose of bringing strong, stable, decisive government to our country.
We're not used to this idea of coalition government and what the impact that has on, the leadership of someone like David Cameron, our Prime Minister, who is leading not only people of his own party, who he can boss around, but also people who belong to a totally different political party. The Ithaka Leadership Development works in both the public and the private sector to try and turn managers into better leaders. They're based in Alvechurch. The managing director is Peter Sturrock. He's with me live on BBC WM this morning. Good morning to you, Peter.
Good morning, Andrew.
Has David Cameron been on the phone asking for your advice?
No.
Well, maybe he should.
I would agree with you. Politicians could do a lot with learning from industry.
Tell me about the sort of advice you give to people running big organisations, whether they are, public or private sector, doesn't matter, on how to be a good leader.
Yes, I think the key things is they have to develop the empathy with the people that they're trying to influence and lead. And that requires a whole suite of skills, from inspiring others to follow their vision, challenging existing ways and looking for better ways, and even sometimes saying, we've done it wrong, let's change back, and enabling change to take place. And above all, they have to be excellent role models and able to communicate well and clearly to the audience that they're addressing. And that means being adaptable and changeable.
Part of the challenge that Cameron's got is that, not everyone in his own government agrees with him about everything, so there's a lot of compromise involved.
Yes.
Is that the case with many leadership roles, where you've got to, take people with you and be seen to be compromising and take everyone's views on board as part of that?
Yeah, I think I'd answer that in relation to, I've worked with quite a lot of companies where they've had dual MDs.
Oh, right, yeah.
And where they've got dual MDs, and in what you played earlier, Cameron was talking about their value bases being the same. They usually are when they first come together, but the hardest thing is, as their values come into conflict, how do they make decisions? Because if they're trying to keep a coalition going, they will be doing compromises which may not be the right decisions for the country.
And not only will compromise be a necessity within a coalition, but we all know that this is a government that's going to have to lead the country through tough times, and that puts a lot of pressure on leadership as well, doesn't it? Doing what you believe to be the right thing, even though it causes pain to people, even though it's bound to be unpopular.
Yes, and again, when you look at industry, it's been ahead of the sort of public sector in doing this, that their leaders have been taking the hard decisions, have been making the redundancies that they have to survive for those that they can keep in employment. And, it is very tough decisions to do that, and you're going to be upsetting people.
How do you get to become the leader? This is going on in Labour, of course, now. We've got 6 people vying for the leadership of the Labour Party.
Right.
What skills do you need to display to the people choosing the leader to convince them it should be you?
I think one of the skills, and we've seen it a little bit with Gordon Brown, is their ability to communicate. They've got to be able to adapt their style. They've got to be able to change. They can't just rely on words. They've got to be able to portray their total image with their tone of voice, their body language, and we look for leaders that are good at doing that. And I think that's why, Blair had a strong leadership because of his flair with not only the words he used, but his whole engagement through his tone and body language. And it's one of the skills that I think a leader of the Labour Party or the country has to have.
Can you learn that, or is it just something some people have got?
You've got to have the foundations of it, but you've got to, I believe, start fairly early developing those skills. We saw some examples in this last election where they were trying to enforce these skills on people, and it came over quite amateurish. So it is something that you can develop with practice, but it takes time.
OK, Peter, thank you very much indeed for that. I'll tell you what's in the Sunday papers about where we are with the coalition government and the politics this morning in the next few minutes on BBC WM. Stay with us.